We now know after 30 years that the ANC is a corrupt party, is also an incompetent party, and is also an immoral party. So the verdict is clear, nothing.
And those contradictions between Floyd Shivambu and Jacob Zuma, because Floyd Shivambu actually really has established himself, especially when he was in the EFF, as a Marxist-Leninist thinker.
Jacob Zuma, people will talk to him as an ancestor. They will go to his grave and talk to him and give him snuff, even though in his life he didn't smoke. But they will go talk to him and say, bless us. So, the MK is not part of our future.
Boom. Guys, so this one, Prince MASHELE is actually going all guns blazing, all right, in terms of his description of the MK party. We see that the MK party actually has been making some strides in South Africa, and especially in the parliament. When you listen to the SONA debates, I saw the head of MK party, Dr. John Schloppe, actually, in a way, it felt like, to me anyway, I don't know about you guys, but when you listen to his speech at the SONA debate, it felt like a praise, so to speak, of a leader. And I really felt a little bit uncomfortable. I think he spent about 5 or 6, 7 minutes trying to show what former President Zuma has done. You know, it just felt, to me, from an outsider, looking from an outsider perspective, that whole praise of a leader. And I don't feel comfortable about that, because the way these things work with leadership is that you just have to find a way to get things done and get out of that place, all right? So this whole thing with praising Zuma and trying to feel loyal and make yourself show loyal, for me anyway, it irritates me, all right? And so I saw now in this video, Prince MASHELE actually arguing about really bold statements about the MK party. I remember the last time in my video, I spoke about how, you know, Prince MASHELE argues that the MK party is a container, so to speak, of how he put it in a really interesting way. Like he said, MK party is almost like a container of state capture forces. All right, that was how he described the MK, and that the MK is nothing without Zuma. The day Zuma goes, MK goes. This is according to Prince MASHELE. But in this video here, he's actually giving us a masterclass on, you know, the MK party. And he makes statements like the fact that the MK party and you can actually draw parallels between the MK party and the Qing dynasty in China. This is actually in Chinese history. And those contradictions between Floyd Shivambu and Jacob Zuma, because Floyd Shivambu actually really has established himself, especially when he was in the EFF, as a Marxist-Leninist thinker or theorist, so to speak. But Jacob Zuma, on the other hand, and majority of the MK party members are much more traditionalist, you know, communalist, pre-colonial Africanist thinkers in that regard. And so that contradiction, I think, is what is giving birth even to now the clashes between Duduzane Zuma, I think Jacob Zuma's daughter, and Floyd Shivambu. There's been a lot of clash in the internet going viral, that, you know, both of them are having clashes. I think this is where that clash is, because when you listen to Floyd Shivambu, he's sharp. The guy is sharp like a razor. He's sharp in terms of his articulation of leftist ideas, Fanonian ideas of left Maoism, you know, Stalinism, Leninism. He understands that. For me, that's a really area also I studied for almost 6 years during my PhD studies on left-wing policies and how leftists think, all right? So that's Floyd Shivambu. But then bringing him into a traditionalist, so to speak, in the likes of Prince MASHELE, language of Prince MASHELE, and how he describes Zuma. Zuma is much more someone who wants the indigeneity, all right, of Africa, African indigeneity, bringing it into politics and all of that. So it's a big contradiction. So he actually argues that as a result of that whole entity, that, you know, MK party cannot be considered in the future of South Africa going forward. He actually also argues on Indlozi, you know, and the EFF's contradiction as well, on how I'm making another video on that anyway. But he actually is bringing all of these contradictions with the EFF party. He argues that Ndlozi once banned him for really speaking against the EFF, but now Ndlozi has been banned by the EFF, and now Ndlozi is going to be starting the profession as a radio presenter. I think I saw that yesterday. And the fact that, you know, the DA in itself just really isn't stable, because it's all about, you know, all around a personality, so to speak. And I really could see that. He has been saying this a lot. I have not really grasped what he means. But when I listened to Dr. John Schlopper's speech at the SONA debates after President Ramaphosa's SONA speech, I could really see that whole eulogizing, that whole praising kind of like worship of an individual. For me, it doesn't really sit well with me. And so if this is how the MK party would wish to change South Africa, I'm not really sure that it might resonate with all of the people, because South Africa is made up of really intelligent people, and you don't bring that kind of leadership, I think, in this mass of really diverse people in that kind of way. So this is how I see. But anyway, let's quickly listen to Prince MASHELE break down the contradictions of the MK party and why he thinks that the MK party is not and might not, or probably will not, be a major player in the future of South Africa. And share your thoughts in the comments.
Again, I'll go back to my history script. Because you see, if you don't follow a history script, you get dismissed glibly by idiots who don't understand how societies evolve. And I will explain the MK historically, and I'm going to borrow the example of China. So in China, the Qing dynasty falls. In 1911, there's excitement when it falls. In 1911, there are elections in China. People actually have no idea that happened. There were elections in China. And the forces that rush to jump into that space, they thought that they were the forces of the future in China. The liberal Democrats, of Yan Sen Tzu thought we are the ones who are taking over that. They did not know that history doesn't work that way. All of those forces, by the way, that jumped into that space after the 1911 elections in China, didn't lead China into the future.
Yeah, very interesting.
Those who led China actually were the communists who were not players during that transition.
Yeah.
They came late in 1949.
After the national.
Yeah. There was a civil war. There was warlordism in China from around 1916 after the elections. There was chaos. China stabilized from 1949 onwards. Those who stabilized China were kids when the chaos happened. So I see MK, they're excited. Everyone is running there. They think they are the ones who are going to get into the space because we're in a transition and they will lead South Africa. Floyd and them, they think, we are the future leaders of South Africa. Leave and I leave. It's not going to happen. These fellows don't understand history. Everyone who's jumping in there, it's actually not going to lead South Africa. South Africa is there will be chaos in South African politics, coalition politics. As I said, for a minimum of 15, around 20 years. Add 20 years to Floyd Shivambu's age. And then you will see where I'm going with this thing. At some point after 20 years, a force will emerge to take over as a hegemonic force that is going to lead South Africa. All of these people who are running around now, most of them will be no more. Jacob Zuma, people will talk to him as an ancestor. They will go to his grave and talk to him and give him snuff, even though in his life he didn't smoke. But they will go talk to him and say, bless us. So, the MK is not part of our future. If you look at it through a historic prism. But here is the other thing about MK. The glue that holds MK together is Jacob Zuma. Remove Jacob Zuma from the picture. And
sorry, you've made me laugh too much.
No, it's true. It's true. Oh, it is true.
Snuff is the best. That's your best line ever.
and you see, those who will go to his grave and give him snuff, by the way, they will make him even very angry because the chap never smoked snuff in his life. But on a serious note, if you remove Jacob Zuma from the MK tomorrow, tell me what will hold this thing together. Number one, the MK doesn't have a cohesive ideology. A cohesive ideology is important in holding together a political party. The MK is a mishmash of all manner of opportunists who are seeing it as a vehicle to power. They think, wow, this thing is growing. Let me run there so that when it captures power, I will be in the union buildings. That's what drives those who are running there. These people, by the way, come from different ideological backgrounds. So take a Floyd Shibam, for example. He tells us he's a Marxist-Leninist. That's what he tells us, even though I doubt that. Is MK a Marxist-Leninist party? No. Jacob Zuma is a traditionalist, a feudalist who believes that traditional leaders must rule. Even his lifestyle, you can see, he's got a Solomonic palace in the middle of poverty in Kandla. That's the kind of thinking. So ideologically, nothing coheres. Number two, Jacob Zuma, if you remove him, there's nothing remains. So I don't see this thing lasting, by the way. I see it falling apart the moment one of two things happens. Jacob Zuma becomes senile. Someone will have to direct it. Two, when he dies. And we all know he's going to die, just like you and I at some point will die. So, no, it's not a part of our future.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Broken societies don't cease to exist. Keep this in mind. You can say it will be dangerous for the ANC or for the DA. That's fine. But someone is going to get elected in 2029. And my guess is this. The DA is here to stay. I don't see the DA declining in 2029. Although I don't see it growing exponentially.
Yeah.
So I see it playing between 20% and 25% in that space. And by the way, that represents growth for the DA if you look at where the DA comes from.
Yeah, absolutely, sure.
I see the ANC declining, falling below 30% in 2029.
29,
yes,
they're going
yes.
10 points further down.
Now, where do they come from? They're now sitting at 40%, right?
40,
they come from 57%.
Yeah.
So what I'm talking about, by the way, it's actually nothing compared to where the ANC come from.
Sure.
So the ANC will decline first. Remember, the ANC is exiting the political scene.
Wow.
So the ANC will get below 30% in 2029. And there's nothing the ANC can do, by the way, to reverse its fortunes. Because the verdict has been delivered. We now know, after 30 years, that the ANC is a corrupt party, is also an incompetent party, and is also an immoral party. So the verdict is clear. Nothing will change that. Nobody who leads the ANC now will reverse that. Even Cyril Ramaphosa has failed to reverse that trajectory. Because Cyril Ramaphosa himself, by the way, is not a saint. I mean, if you think of Palapal, you know what Cyril did, by the way, with those dollars? If I did it, people would be coming to greet me in prison.
Yeah.
If I did it. He didn't go to jail simply because he's the president of a country. But that he is corrupt, we all know. There's no question about it. So the ANC, it's history. The DA is here to stay. But the DA, in my view, will never be a leader of South Africa for as long as those who run it continue to believe that they're superior to black people and they don't open up for credible black leaders to sit with credible white leaders and plot how to take this country forward. Remember, you can go back to history. That is the moment where the erstwhile enemies reached. The Afrikaners and the English, they had fought before until they realized that actually actually the solution is for us to sit around the same boardroom and plot how we're going to co-govern this country. So unless and until white people genuinely, not this condescending stuff, when a white person is talking nonsense, a credible black person must tell that white person you're talking nonsense without there being anything. When a black person is talking nonsense, a credible white person must say, yes, you're talking nonsense, without there being moral this and moral that. You need to get to a moment where, as South Africans, we are genuine and honest to each other. We look each other in the eye and say, you two are talking nonsense. I don't care that you are white, or I don't care that you are black. So the DA is refusing to get to that point. That's why they will be stuck in the 20s. They will not lead South Africa. And the longer they get stuck in that space, the greater the prospects of a party that is going to emerge claiming and legitimately, by the way, being welcomed by the majority of black people and viewing whites as the enemy. And if that happens, in the end, the DA would have committed crime against its own constituency. So the DA must think strategically in the long term. If they don't act now, I can tell you their great-grandchildren will pay the price.